What's up everyone, and thank you for stopping by. Today's project is the Stihl Trimmer, and the problem is that it starts and runs, but it doesn't have a lot of power. Now this problem makes this trimmer extremely tough to use in tall grass, so hopefully we can get it working like it should. Let's take a good look at it, find out what's wrong with it, and hopefully we can fix it. In this video, we try and repair this trimmer. However, it may not be the exact repair you need to make to yours. We'll explore other options later in the video. Now, this trimmer is in great shape. There's hardly a scratch on it and appears to have been taken care of, so why would this trimmer start having problems like this? Now, as far as I know, it's only been used residentially and not commercially, so it's definitely not been abused. And from what we've seen in past videos, just because it looks unused doesn't mean it hasn't developed some issues. So this trimmer starts just fine, and it can even be used at part throttle. However, when it comes to being used at full throttle, it's apparently out of the question. It simply will not get to full engine speed. So there are a few reasons why a trimmer would act this way, and those reasons could range from bad fuel, a spark plug issue, and even a carburetor tuning issue. The other problem could be the carb itself. However, we'll definitely try to adjust it before we try replacing it. Something that surprised me was the age of this trimmer. I thought it was only a few years old, but according to this tag, it's 6 years old. Now, either it was kept in the box for a few years or someone took exceptional care of it. I will say that I did clean it before filming, but all I did was clean the grass clippings off the guard, the gearbox, and the lower part of the shaft, and that's it. The rest of the machine was in great shape. Even all the safety stickers are in great shape. Most are usually severely damaged at this age. Now, the trimmer does have some fuel in the tank, so the first thing I want to do is start it up and see the problem firsthand, and this will give us a better idea of what the problem might be. So the first thing I noticed was that it was a lot quieter than it should have been, even when squeezing the trigger, and it's not supposed to be like that. It should have been considerably louder. The first thing I want to do was look at the fuel in the tank, one, because it's the easiest thing to do, and two, because it's not my own personal fuel, so I have to confirm that there's nothing wrong with it. It looks like the 2-cycle oil is green, which is something I've moved away from. I find the blue oil is easier to gauge when mixing it. However, this fuel does look to be properly mixed. It also smells fresh, and I don't see any water contamination in it, so I don't think this is our problem. The next thing we need to do is check the engine's breathing, which means we need to check to see if the air filter is clogged with dirt or see if it's wet with fuel. And as you can see, it's definitely not clogged with dirt. In fact, it looks almost brand new. It's also not wet with fuel, so the air shouldn't have any problems flowing through it. If yours is dirty or wet, try starting the engine without it and see if it still acts the same way. Since we know air is getting into the engine, we need to see if air is leaving the engine through the exhaust. Now, the most likely culprit is the spark arrestor screen that sits on the muffler's outlet. Unfortunately, to get access to it, we need to remove the rear cover, which is also the recoil assembly. In older models, they used to make this much easier to remove and inspect, but I do believe they made these harder to remove on residential models. As for the reason, I don't know why, but I'm sure you could come up with a few ideas. So this is where the screen is located, right on the outlet of the muffler and before the deflector. Now the screen is held in place with a single screw, so we need to remove it. That way we'll be able to pull the screen out for an inspection. Just like the name implies, it is a wire screen that lets exhaust pass through it, but it should stop sparks from getting through. So like any screen, we should be able to see through it. So here's the screen, and if we put it in front of the handle, you should be able to see through it, but as you can tell, it's mostly clogged with carbon from the engine, and the only areas that are clear are the parts that weren't in the exhaust flow. Now to fix this, you could buy a new screen, but the next best thing to do is to try and burn off the carbon using a propane torch. If you don't have a torch available, you could probably use a propane grill, or even throw it into a fire for a few minutes. Once the carbon has been burned off, we need to use a wire brush to clean what's left off the screen. I'm sure it wouldn't hurt to just reinstall the screen without using a wire brush, but since I have one available, I'm going to use it. As you can see, it looks a whole lot better than before. Now we can definitely see the handle right through it, which is a far cry from what it looked like before we cleaned it. This should fix the problem not being able to get the engine to full speed. I know there'll be viewers out there who would tell me to get rid of the screen altogether, that way this won't happen again. I would suggest not getting rid of it for safety reasons. To prevent this from happening in the future, make sure that you use the trimmer at full speed for more than half the time you use it. This should keep the screen from getting clogged with carbon. There is one more thing I want to check, which is the spark plug. Since there was a lot of carbon buildup on the screen, that would also mean there's a lot of carbon buildup on the spark plug. If that's the case, I want to make sure the plug is clean, and if it's not clean, I want to try cleaning it. So the spark plug isn't in terrible shape, however it could use a good cleaning or we could just replace it. I am going to test it with a spark plug tester to make sure it's still working well. So it seems to be working just fine, but since I really don't like replacing plugs just for the sake of maintenance, I'm going to clean it, and I'll be using the same method as the screen. Now this is the only way I clean my plugs, so I don't know if using a different method like brake cleaner or some other solvent would work any better. I don't want to spend too much time cleaning because running the trimmer at full speed would do a better job of cleaning off the carbon, but at least I got the majority of it. Now that both the spark plug and the screen are clean, we can now put everything back together, start the trimmer, and test to make sure it works like it should. Another reason why this engine wouldn't get to full speed is if the carburetor was out of tune and needs to be adjusted. An engine that gets too much fuel or not enough fuel would not run near its full speed. The reason for this condition could either be a metering diaphragm that's beginning to harden or a fuel filter that's clogged with debris and not allowing enough fuel to get to the carb. The other reason doesn't have to do with the carburetor, but instead the engine could have a problem like worn gaskets and seals. Now that everything is back together, I'll put some fresh fuel in the tank and try starting it. Just as a reminder, when pressing your purge bulb, make sure that it fills up with fuel, otherwise your engine might not start. As you can hear, it's finally getting to full speed, and it's a lot louder than before, which means the exhaust is able to leave the engine with a lot less restriction. Remember, to keep this problem from happening again, don't use your trimmer at low speeds, make sure you use it at half to full throttle, and this should keep the carbon from building up on the screen. Not all brands of trimmers have a screen that you can examine. Some are built into the muffler and were never meant to be removed. If you have one like this, there are a few things you can do to get around it, but we'll have to leave that for another video. So my question is, if your spark arrestor screen was blocked on your trimmer, what would you do to clean it? Would you go through the bother of buying a propane torch, or would you use an outdoor grill or fire instead? Personally, I would probably use my lighter first, and if that didn't work, I'd use my propane grill. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate your time here. Please feel free to ask me any questions, and I hope to see you in the next video.